Today I want to tell you a story so brutal, it left a town trembling in silence set deep in the unforgiving American West, where dust ruled the land and mercy was rare. It's a place where tradition and cruelty crossed paths, and where one woman's fate was decided under an open sky. It all began with a single accusation, small whispered and easy to believe, yet powerful enough to condemn an innocent soul to death beneath the burning sun. Before we kick off this adventure, don't forget to hit like on the video and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. The sun showed no mercy that day. Its heat crushed the desert floor until the land itself seemed to breathe in pain. In the center of that endless stretch of dust and stone, a young woman lay bound and exposed. Her wrists were cinched tight to iron stakes driven deep into the earth. Her ankles were pulled so hard the rope cut into flesh. She was spread out beneath the sky like an offering left for the sun to decide her fate. Her dress was ripped and stained. Her lips were split and dry, tasting of blood. Sweat glued strands of hair to her face. Every breath came shallow and sharp, every small movement a battle against the cords holding her down. A ring of onlookers stood at a distance, silent and unmoving. Their eyes stayed on her. Some turned their faces away, unable to bear the sight. Others watched with a hard, empty calm, as if her pain somehow steadied their own fear. At the front stood Wade Kincaid, the man who ruled Dry Creek. His gaze was sharp and unblinking, his voice carrying the weight of a law no one questioned. One hand rested on the handle of his whip, though he never raised it. The ropes and the sun were punishment enough. When he spoke, the silence shattered. "This is the way of our fathers," he said, pointing toward the girl. "If she survives 3 days beneath the sky, she goes free. If she dies, her guilt is proven. That is the law." No one challenged him. The Dry Creek folk nodded slowly. Some murmured prayers under their breath. Others spat into the dirt, sealing the judgment as if it were sacred. The girl's name was Clara Reed, only 23 years old. She had been accused of stealing gold from the very people now watching her suffer. When supplies vanished from the stores, Wade Kincaid named her the thief. She denied it with everything she had, but truth meant nothing against his authority. Now she lay helpless, skin burning beneath the pitiless sky. Her throat tightened as she tried to speak. "Please, I'm begging you." "I didn't do this. Please." The desert wind tore the words from her mouth and carried them away. No one answered. No one moved. Children clung to their mothers. Old men folded their arms across their chests. Not a single step forward. To them, this was not cruelty. This was justice. This was tradition. For generations, the Sun Trial Law had ruled Dry Creek. To question it was to stand against the village itself. And so they turned away, leaving her alone beneath the open sky. The sun climbed higher. The ground beneath Clara burned her skin. Her eyes drifted open and shut, as if even seeing required too much strength. Hours passed without mercy. Her world shrank to the thunder of her heartbeat and the low buzz of flies circling cracked earth. Blood coated her tongue. Her voice no longer rose into screams. It fell into whispers. Whispers the desert swallowed whole. Still in that hollow space between pain and fading breath, one thought held on. She did not want to die unseen. She did not want her truth to vanish with her body. Clara's lips trembled as she prayed that someone, anyone, might cross this cursed land and hear her. But who would come? And if they did, would they dare stand against tradition? Would they defy Wade Kincaid? Or would they turn away like the rest and leave her to the sun? The light slowly dipped lower, yet the heat still blistered her skin. Her voice faded until nothing remained but a broken breath, barely there at all. She had already accepted that no one was coming. Then the sound reached her hooves, biting into hard ground, slow and deliberate. Her eyes cracked open. Through the shimmer of heat she saw him. A tall rider sat straight in the saddle's shoulders, set moving with the careful ease of a man who had crossed battlefields and survived them. His name was Silas Crow. 56 years old. A rancher now. Once a soldier who carried scars no one could see. He had come back from war with silence instead of stories work, instead of laughter, a lonely spread of land, instead of town noise. That quiet ended the moment he saw her, a young woman stretched between 4 iron stakes, skin torn by rope lips, split by thirst. She lifted her head just enough to breathe the words, "Please, I'm begging you. Untie me." The plea struck him hard. He could have ridden on. That would have been the sensible choice. Everyone around Dry Creek knew better than to challenge Wade Kincaid and his twisted law. But Silas Crow had never learned how to look away from suffering. Not after what he'd seen. Not after losing a family because others chose silence. He swung down from his horse. The dry earth cracked beneath his boots. He knelt beside Clara Reed, his shadow cooling her burned skin. Her eyes locked onto his wide with terror and hope. "You didn't do this, did you?" he asked under his breath. "No," she rasped. "I swear, I didn't." Silas pulled a knife from his belt and sliced through the ropes at her wrists. The cords snapped free, leaving angry red welts behind. Her hands shook as if freedom felt unreal. He cut the ropes at her ankles next and lifted her with a strength that surprised even him. She was light as dust. The desert had already taken too much. He carried her toward his horse. From a distant ridge, 2 members of the Dry Creek folk stared in stunned silence. They would run to Kincaid soon enough. Silas hadn't just broken a law, he had defied tradition itself. As he set Clara into the saddle, her voice faltered again. "They'll kill you for this." Silas tightened his jaw. Let them try. He pulled the reins and the horse moved, carrying them away from that cursed patch of land. Neither of them knew what waited beyond the ridge. Would Wade Kincaid let them go? Or was this only the beginning of something worse? Silas had barely cleared the rise when a shout tore through the air. "Stop right there, Crow." He reined in and turned. Wade Kincaid stood ahead with 4 men behind him. His long coat snapped in the wind. One hand hovered near his revolver. Behind him, the iron spur men spread out, one gripping a heavy club, another flashing a knife in the sun, a third with a pistol half drawn. Kincaid's eyes locked on Silas. "You think you can ride off with her? You just spit on the law of this town," Kincaid said. "The law of our fathers." Silas answered calmly, his voice low and steady. "That law isn't justice, it's cruelty," he went on. "And you know she didn't steal a thing. You just needed someone to blame." Wade Kincaid's mouth twisted into a smile without warmth. His men shifted, spreading wide to choke off the trail. Clara Reed clutched the saddle horn, her voice shaking as she whispered, "They'll kill you." Silas Crow adjusted his stance, fingers brushing the worn grip of his old Colt, though he left it holstered. The quiet stretched tight as a drawn wire. The first man lunged, swinging a heavy club. Silas slipped aside and drove his fist into the man's gut. The club dropped with a dull thud as the attacker folded in on himself. The second came hard with a knife. Silas caught the wrist twisted until bone protested and sent the blade spinning into the dirt. A sharp elbow snapped the man's head back and put him down. The third raised a pistol. Clara gasped. Silas moved up first, his boot slammed the man's arm. The shot cracked uselessly into the sky, and Silas drove him face first into the dust. The last man froze. His eyes flicked to Kincaid, waiting for a sign. Kincaid didn't move. His jaw clenched, but his hand stayed near his revolver. He knew when to stop. He could see it in Silas's eyes, the look of a man who had survived wars. This wasn't a bluff. Kincaid spat into the dirt. "This isn't over," he said. "Crow, you and the girl will pay. Both of you." He turned sharply and waved his men back. The beaten iron spur men dragged themselves up, limping away, with their pride shattered. The silence returned. Silas drew a steady breath and swung into the saddle beside Clara. She stared at him, fear and awe tangled together. They rode without speaking. Both understood this was only the beginning. Kincaid had been humiliated, and men like him never forgot. The question pressed in as the miles passed. Where could they go, and who, if anyone, would stand with them? Dry Creek lay quiet when Silas guided the horse into the marshal's yard. Clara sagged in the saddle near fainting, and Silas caught her before she slipped. Marshal Owen Black stepped out of his office, hand resting on his belt as he took them in. "Silas Crow," he said slowly, "I haven't seen you since the war, and now you show up with a girl on the edge of collapse." What in God's name happened? Silas carried Clara inside and set her on a bench. He spoke one name, Wade Kincaid, and let it fall like a stone. The marshal's expression hardened. "That man's been playing king for too long," Owen Black muttered. He knelt to examine the rope burns on Clara's wrists and shook his head. "She needs water, food, and rest, and I believe her." He rose and met Silas's eyes. "Belief isn't enough. We'll need proof. Give me time. I'll dig. I'll question the men who've been skimming and check the bookstores, shipments, all of it. If Kincaid's dirty, we'll find it." Silas nodded. He trusted Owen Black. They had stood shoulder to shoulder once, and even after years of hard living, that bond held. The days that followed moved slowly, each one heavy with waiting. Clara Reed was kept in a narrow room near the marshal's office. Silas Crow came by often, sometimes with a heel of bread, sometimes with a tin cup of coffee still warm. In the beginning, she barely spoke. The desert had stolen her voice. But little by little it returned. She told him about her parents, about the small farm she once worked with her own hands, about how everything vanished the day Wade Kincaid's men pointed at her and called her a thief. Silas listened without interrupting, his lined face soft in the glow of a single candle. When she asked about the war, he didn't dress it up. He offered no heroics, only quiet memories, nights that never seemed to end, mornings that came too soon. They shared long pauses as well, silences that said more than words ever could. One evening, Clara met his eyes steady for the first time. "You could have left me out there," she said. "Why didn't you?" Silas studied her for a long moment before answering. "Because no one should die that way," he said, "and because I've already lost enough." She reached across the table, then her fingers brushing his hand. The touch was brief, but it lingered. The rancher who had kept himself apart from the world felt something stir again. Beyond that small room, danger gathered. The iron spur men drifted through taverns and back alleys, trading whispers and threats. Marshal Owen Black returned with troubling news, missing shipments, ledgers that didn't balance. Traders spoke of quiet deals and gold that changed hands in the dark. It wasn't the whole truth yet, but it was enough to feel the storm coming. One night, Silas stood by the window, watching lamplight flicker along the street. Clara broke the silence. "Do you think we'll ever be free of this?" Silas turned to her, his face marked by both fear and hope. "I don't know," he said. The words hung heavy. Would the marshal's work be enough to bring Kincaid down, or would Kincaid strike first before the truth could surface? The investigation moved faster than Kincaid expected. For days, Marshal Owen Black sent men to question traders and comb through dust-choked records. Piece by piece, the shape of the truth emerged. Accounts surfaced. Shipments meant for nearby towns had vanished without a trace. Every trail led back to one man, Wade Kincaid. The marshal rode into Dry Creek with Silas and Clara beside him. The Dry Creek folk gathered faces tight as Owen Black laid out the evidence. Kincaid shouted cursed, called it lies, but the proof was heavy. For the first time, the crowd looked at him without fear. What had ruled them for years turned into anger. Silas watched as voices rose one after another. The same people who had left Clara beneath the sun now turned on the man who had condemned her. They dragged Kincaid back to the place of her suffering. 4 iron stakes waited in the dust ropes laid out once more. The crowd spoke with one voice. If the sun is our judge, let it judge you. Kincaid's protests fell flat, swallowed by the sun trial law he had wielded against others. He was bound to the ground, forced to stare into the same merciless sky he once trusted to break the innocent. Clara stood behind Silas, eyes wide, lips trembling. It's cruel, she whispered. Silas rested a hand on her shoulder. Yes, he said. But sometimes a cruel law consumes the man who created it, and maybe that's justice enough. The crowd turned away, leaving Kincaid alone beneath the burning sun. As the dust settled, the law that had once condemned the innocent became the end of the guilty. Marshal Owen Black looked from Silas Crow to Clara Reed and spoke plainly. You're free now, both of you. But remember, freedom in this land always asks a price. They rode out of Dry Creek side by side. The sun was sinking low, washing the horizon in fire and gold. Clara turned toward Silas as the horse moved steadily beneath them. Her voice was quiet, but it didn't waver. Thank you. You didn't just give me my life back. You gave me hope. For the first time in many years, Silas let a small smile surface. Hope was something he'd believed long buried lost to dust and time. Now it rode with him close enough to touch. What remained was the truth left behind in their wake, that justice, even when slow, has a way of finding its mark. That a single act of courage can snap chains others are too afraid to reach for. And that something fragile and real can take root even in the harshest desert where survival once seemed like the only law. As the distance grew between them and Dry Creek, the question lingered in the open air. If you had stood there that day, would you have cut the ropes? Would you have faced the village and the sun trial law and chosen differently? Finally, let me send my deep thanks to you. We appreciate you more than you think. If this tale stirred something deep inside, we invite you to remain part of this frontier of memories. More true stories of honor, compassion, and destiny are waiting for you here. Subscribe, share, comment, and thank you for riding with us today. Aviso legal, barra disclaimer. Our content is designed for artistic and entertainment purposes and may reinterpret historical themes using fictional touches. We apply AI tools thoughtfully only to support production while keeping human supervision over editing, emotional tone, and narrative coherence. We always comply with regulatory guidelines for AI-based media and avoid deepfake practices or identity manipulation. All supporting components remain legally sourced. Please ask for authorization before sharing or adapting any segment. Your respect makes it possible for us to continue telling meaningful stories.